Christy Johnson, soul health coach and author of Love Junkie, 7 Steps for Breaking the Toxic Relationship Cycle. Today on Soul Fit, we're going to talk about a very important question, and one that brings more guilt to women than any other issue: the issue of sex before marriage. In a culture where everyone else is doing it, is it really wrong? Now, some of you may be thinking, Christy, do you really have to go there? Yes, because sex outside of marriage causes so much guilt and shame. You know, growing up, I always thought sex was a big no-no. You shouldn't do that. Good girls don't do that. I grew up with the mindset that God wanted to keep something from me. But I had it all backwards. It wasn't until I met my husband, John, that I understood things from God's perspective. John and I have been married for 16 years now, and I'm convinced that without the revelation about my sexual integrity that God gave me while I was dating him, that our marriage would not be solid today. Before I met John, I relied on my own willpower to resist temptation. But how many of you know, in the face of temptation, willpower will only take you so far? What I needed was a revelation. Ladies, when we have a revelation of God's truth, it empowers us to resist temptation because we're not looking at what we can't have. We're focused on what we can have. We see the blessing in our future, not what we perceive God is withholding in our present. God isn't shaking his finger at you and saying, no, you can't have that. He's saying, I have a beautiful gift for you. But if you open it too early, it won't be all it can be. God is not trying to withhold something from you. He's trying to protect something valuable, a gift he wants you to fully enjoy within the confines of marriage. I'm sure you've heard all that before, but let me tell you something else. The gift that he wants to give you is not just about your physical, intimate relationship. Sexual purity is a big deal to God, but sex isn't the only blessing God has for relationships. You see, like a diamond, a relationship has multiple facets that many times never get polished because couples are hopping into bed. But God has other things he wants to develop in your relationship that are necessary to build a solid foundation in your marriage. Faithfulness, integrity, honor, patience. And there is an order for things to be developed. When you're building a house, you can't put the roof on until the walls are up. And you can't put the walls up until the foundation is poured. Oh, you know, I suppose some have tried. But relationships are the same way. There is an order for things to be developed. Spiritual oneness is first, then emotional oneness, and lastly, physical oneness. But developing a spiritual oneness in your relationship, it's like laying a solid foundation. Next, building a strong emotional oneness gives walls that establish borders to define the parameters of your relationship. And lastly comes the physical oneness, intended to be like the roof that protects from the outside elements. If you try to put that roof on your relationship first, your walls and foundation will be compromised. And yet that's what so many couples do. Their physical oneness is fully developed. They know how to please one another physically, but emotional needs are left unmet. They're great in bed, but their spiritual oneness is malnourished. Then when the storms come, the foundation they built their relationship on cracks. I want to share a story with you about my friend's struggle with her own sexual integrity. I'm just going to call her Sarah. Sarah is like so many Christian women. She loves the Lord, but she struggled with this issue. The commitment to purity became even more difficult after her boyfriend proposed. What's the harm now? The enemy whispered. You're going to be married soon anyway. One Sunday in worship, Sarah felt the Lord's conviction, and she wrote these words that God spoke to her in her journal. And the Lord told her, what do you know about being faithful? Don't you know that you are mine? Who are you to give yourself to another man that I've not yet given you to? You aren't ready to be a faithful wife until you can first be faithful to me. I'm teaching you to love, to honor, and to be faithful unconditionally, not just when you feel like it, but even when, especially when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and difficult. This type of love requires you to depend on the Holy Spirit for strength. Powerful words. I get chills every time I read them. So let me encourage you today. Don't conform to the standards of the world. Make a commitment to maintain your sexual integrity. God is the architect of relationships. He knows what He's doing. Your sexual intimacy in marriage is worth the wait. So ladies, stay tuned on this video journey as we explore more ways to improve our soul health and avoid the toxic love rut. Next, I want to talk about 5 ways to spot an abusive man, so you don't want to miss it. You can also click the link to read more at christyjohnson.org. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Soul Fit.